Make a, all right, there we go. So good morning, everyone. I'm very excited to introduce you to Drew Deraney, and he is going to talk to you about authenticity, which is one of my favorite subjects. And so Drew is a mindset mastery coach, and I think many of us need help with our mindsets at at times. And so Drew's going to share some insights with us, and so we look forward to hearing what Drew has to say. So Drew, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you, Tina. Thank you all for allowing me into your life. You had other places to be, and I really appreciate that you're here, and I hope I can make you proud. So, today we're going to talk about three things: embracing authenticity, navigating that challenge, and creating an impact. First thing I would like to do is celebrate you. And if you're able to take yourself off mute, I want to hear some wins that you have had in the past week, professional, personal, small, big, because I know you've had them. Who's willing to share any wins you've had for the week?
Yeah, got some repairs done that I needed for car repairs yesterday. Little
Beautiful.
personal thing. Thank you.
That's big. Congratulations. Anybody else have wins?
I'll go. I signed a new client this week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Mary, Mary Rogers. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. So I just completed my first 30 days in a new role, and my big win this week was completing a business overview and marketing plan. And so I'm giving a presentation on that on Monday. So I made it 30 days.
Congratulations. Best of success on that presentation. Udo.
I had a remarkable networking meeting with someone yesterday based in Reno. And the short story of it is we had some amazing coincidences with a lot of experiences in both Arizona and South Africa. So it was like almost talking to a rare person. Yeah, you don't normally get, at least I didn't get that much charge out of a networking meeting as I did yet last
Beautiful.
night.
Love hearing that. I love starting off with wins because our brains usually tend to go to the negative whenever we're asked something, and it's easier to remember the negative than it is the positive. So, love to celebrate you, and want you to celebrate yourself every day, those small wins. Like to give you just a brief recap of why I do what I do. And I tell my story started in a 9 month span. I experienced divorce, and there'll be a pattern here where I blame my wife. Then I got fired from my job. I blamed my boss. My son had suicidal ideations, and I blamed myself. And my father unexpectedly got sick and passed away, and I blamed God. I allowed each of these four things to devastate me emotionally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. And most of us have experienced similar hardships in our lives, and I hope that they made you stronger. I now realize that for 20 years, I wasn't really living life. I was going through the motions. I learned that I forgot how to really listen to somebody. I forgot how to be my true self. I lost my authenticity. Empathy abandoned me. I lost my self identity. With those four faith shaking moments, I owned a victim and blame mindset, and I lost who I was. Certainly not a healthy way to live. When all of this happened to me, I wanted to cave in. I wanted to give up. Yet I knew there was a better way to live, and I was determined to find it. I'd always wanted to write a book, and I never had content. Well, now everybody, I had the content. So I found an editor, and I told her my story. And you know what? It helped me heal from within. Hearing my voice to my ears and hearing my story helped me heal from within. It was cathartic. And I now know that healing from within is the only way to heal. I no longer felt alone. Others began telling me their story, and you know what? They felt better. So I started to believe that I had found a better way to live. I started learning about my mindset, and there are different types of mindsets, ones that either hold you back or ones that catapult you forward. I was tired of letting my mindset hold me back. I'm still a work in progress, and I always will be, and we're all works in progress, and that's okay. So I call this a reality check. I'd like you to sit up straight in your chair, shoulders back, head up, chest out. That's your posture exudes confidence. I'd like you to please close your eyes. And we're just going to breathe in and out 3 times, in through the nose, out through the mouth. 7 seconds in, 9 out. Do it 3 times. Please keep your eyes closed. Imagine you're entering your workplace. You reach for the doorknob of whatever door enters your workplace. You are having your best day ever. You are feeling wonderful about yourself. The birds are chirping. It's beautiful out. You feel wonderful about yourself and about the work you do at your place of employment. You have wonderful, wonderful feelings coming throughout your body. You walk in that room and you're smiling, and all your coworkers are smiling. It's going to be an awesome day. There's so much positive energy. You feel you can accomplish anything. You are so looking forward to this day at work. 3 more deep breaths in and out, and then when you're ready, open your eyes. When you're ready, open your eyes. Shake your shoulders out. Keep this feeling throughout your day. And you can, because you control that. I'm going to throw a question out to you, and I'd love for you to pay special attention to it and even write it down. My question to you as we go on this journey of authenticity is, and you're going to write down, am I, it's a question, am I living my life as the person I really am, or am I living life as the person others want me to be? Today, we're working on closing that gap between what you visualized, your perfect days at work, and what you feel like when you're usually at work. And I'm hoping there's no gap. Okay. Here's why we must challenge our current behaviors. Recent statistics show well over 50% of your root beliefs about yourself and how you look at the world were formed by the age of 7 years old. By the age of 18, over 90% of your beliefs were already formed. In essence, at 18, you are likely living other people's lives and may have been for many years later. You have the opportunity to make changes in your belief system so you can begin to write your own story instead of letting others write it for you. Something to think about. According to cognitive neuroscientists, you are conscious of only about 5% of your cognitive brain activity. So most of your decisions, actions, emotions, and behavior depend on that 95% of brain activity that goes beyond your conscious awareness. You are living on autopilot most of your waking moment. The good news is your brain is not set in stone. You have an opportunity with your 5% conscious brain activity to positively impact the other 95% unconscious activity by being intentional and purposeful and self-aware. You can change detrimental habits to those of a healthier aspect. Third piece of data. 85% of physical ailments stem from unaddressed internal stress. So ignoring what's going on inside your body and mind will eventually bring you physical pain or discomfort. So the focus is to be aware as often as you can be and not to ignore what's happening inside your mind or your heart or your gut during your course of your day. Embracing authenticity. Being who you truly are builds trust, fosters genuine relationships, enhances collaboration, increases employee satisfaction, and boosts leadership effectiveness. Embracing authenticity in the workplace it's not just about being true to oneself. It's about creating a culture of trust, respect, and collaboration. When individuals feel empowered to be their authentic selves, it leads ultimately to better performance and success for the organization as a whole, and it's better for you outside of work as well. Now, there are so many challenges to navigate in the workplace by being yourself and being authentic, and it's things we need to think about consciously on how we can balance the two. Because navigating challenges to authenticity in the workplace requires a delicate balance between being true to oneself and conforming to professional expectations. Here are some common obstacles that make it a challenge to be authentic in the workplace: corporate culture, fear of judgment, balancing authenticity with professionalism, navigating power dynamics, and there's cultural and identity differences. Ultimately, navigating those challenges requires awareness, resilience, and a willingness to self-advocate while you're expecting the norms and the expectation of the organization's culture. How do you create an impact by being authentic and balancing that? And it's not easy. It's a challenge. I've worked in corporate for 30 some odd years before I started on my own. And there were times I wasn't myself. I wore a mask because I was a people pleaser, wanting everybody to like me. And in those rare instances when I was myself, people thought that was out of character. And I'm thinking to myself, well, no, this is the real me. And in a way, I was manipulating others by not being my true self. And it took me about 50 some odd years to realize this. But empowerment fosters innovation. And that's what really authenticity does. Authenticity promotes open communication, trust, emotional respect. It improves employee engagement. It drives positive change, and it attracts and retains talent. It's also a strategic advantage. But therein lies the challenge. How are we ourselves, and how do we fit in with the corporate culture? Now, when all else fails, here's what you can control in your thoughts and behaviors. I'm going to give you 8 things to give up. Give up doubting yourself. Give up negative thinking. Give up the fear of failure. Give up criticizing others. It happens. Give up negative self-talk. Give up procrastination. Give up fear of success. And give up people pleasing. There are so many things we can do within our control, those 8 things especially, that help us naturally move towards being our authentic selves. They also allow us to adhere to the culture of the organization in which we work. It's a delicate balance. And there were times, I got fired twice from the hospitals because I was told Drew does his own thing. Now, for me, I thought I was doing what was right. I was in healthcare for 24 years, so I thought I was doing right by the patients. Many times, though, I wasn't really being my authentic self because what I say we have two types of egos, the rational ego and the emotional ego. And many times my emotional ego got in my way and caused me to self-sabotage. So that's where I wanted to start. And I really would love to open it up to questions and answers about your experiences with authenticity, where some of your trepidation is in being yourself in organizations in general, or if you've overcome that, or some success you've had in balancing the two and some challenges you've had. Is it fair to open it up to questions now? Yeah. So with your digital hand, the raised hand, any input you have for what I mentioned, and if you've okay, Russ, love to hear what you have to say, my friend.
Yes, thank you. I had this thing happen as one example because interesting. I was watching about the history of, we'll just say, our predecessor in office without any name, and I was thinking about some of the aspects without taking on some of the other aspects,
Mm.
and talk about, well, at least he just didn't care about making creating waves or any of that sort of stuff, and something happened on with a couple, because I'm active in Toastmasters, and the club that I'm part of is struggling or has been struggling, and many are right now because there's raised things, and I want to bring everything back to of everything outside it. And so a couple that came in to assist us was very helpful to me, and I appreciated it. However, one of them kind of seemed to turn to center that fine line of feedback versus negativity, that sort of thing. And so anyway, so I reached out. She mentioned something to me of something she needed that wasn't getting handled, and this is the same person I've been communicating with. So I just included them all. I said, please get back to her, and whatever it is, make sure she's taken care of, because I wanted to assist. And she was very unappreciative. She's like, why do you do this? And like almost like blaming me. Now she's got to get involved in that. I said, well, you could have just said thank me. Thank you. Like you're asking me to do. So I said, all right, all you gotta do is say thank you until then, every thank you I gave you was a thank you. And she turned very upset. Oh. And then just kind of wanted to cancel. So anyway.
Yeah. No, thanks for sharing, Russ, and for
Welcome.
being vulnerable. And yeah, it is a challenge because many times it's our reaction to how people behave that gets us into issues. And being able to be able to freeze. You know, a lot of times we respond in a fight or flight mode, right? And it's very challenging to freeze. But a lot of times you freeze that deep breath, and then you come up with more of a rational response. So thank you, Alan.
You're welcome.
Drew, thank you very much for the 8 points. I think they're spot on, and I appreciate your personal journey and you being open to sharing that. I think one of the things that you talked about here is vulnerability and being vulnerable at work. That's the kind of underlining thing. I'm curious to know a little bit about recommendations that you have on how to be vulnerable in a professional situation. Statistically, people stay at a job because of a peer, because they make a quote best friend at work. And it's easy for us to be vulnerable with that one individual, but at a manager, director, executive level, it's much more difficult to be that vulnerable. And I'm curious what insights you have on that particular.
Oh, thank you, Alan. Yeah, in my 30 years in corporate, my challenge was asking for help. If I was in a room full of executives, whether it was a meeting or whatnot, I had a challenge admitting when I didn't know something, because I thought that in their presence, I had to show that I had the ability to be in the same room with them. So maybe it was a lack of self-confidence, but I've learned that admitting when you don't know something and saying I'd love to learn, people love to teach. And so for me, I think asking for help is a safe way to be vulnerable. You're not acknowledging that you're ignorant or you don't have ability or you don't belong there. much of our answers come from experience, and the wisdom we attain from our experience. So, especially early in my career, in my 20s, I had a challenge acknowledging that I don't have the experience and wisdom that these men and women have, and I should be open to accepting their information. So I would say asking for help is a huge piece of the vulnerability that I think is underestimated.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Cheryl.
So when you're at work and in a professional setting, I happen to be in HR,
Mhm,
and when you're the lone person trying to do the right thing,
mhm.
but this is not company culture. What's the saying? Company culture eats intent for lunch. I know I've said that wrong, but um, how do you navigate that?
Mm,
Because your choice is to leave. If
yeah,
it's just you,
yeah,
it's kind of hard to fight City Hall. So where's the balance in there?
yeah. It's a fine line, and I got fired from my last job in the hospital. The short of it is I reported a HIPAA violation, and 10 days later I was let go. Now, I know I don't think it was I was let go because I reported the HIPAA violation. I was asked to wait a couple weeks and do more research before I reported it. And I knew in that 2 weeks of research, I wasn't going to find anything. So rather than, I thought it was compromising my integrity by listening. um, there was a way I could have done the right thing and still adhered to what my boss requested. I chose to report it anyway and not listen to my boss. In retrospect, I can't fix it. What I would do differently if I encountered this now, I would have said, absolutely, I'll do more research in 2 weeks, and I will really do that research. And if I come back with something, no matter what I come back with, I'll show my boss, and then she would have said, report it. So I think for me, balancing that, if you listen to your boss and it doesn't compromise your integrity, and so it's about thinking differently. I just reacted and I was just like, no, I know I'm right. Um, if you know though that you definitely are doing the right thing and that the company doesn't, I would end up doing the right thing and let the chips fall where they may. More often than not, in our brain, when we're afraid of the future, when we start to, I wonder what's going to happen if I say this, we start thinking of the worst, the worst, the worst, the worst. And usually, if we take that plunge and do what we feel is right in our gut, all those negative responses don't happen. And I think if you know in your gut, there is something to do with that intuition. You know it's the right thing to do. y- You do it. And you may want to preface letting somebody know who might get upset with you is out of my integrity and I didn't want to compromise my principles. This is why I did this. And then chips fall where they may and you handle the response from there. It's how you react to it rather than what you think is going to happen. I don't know if that helps, but Bill.
Hey, thanks, Drew. I was thinking that authenticity often requires adaptability. I think we have a natural communication style, and we also can adapt our communication style to other people so that we can be more effective in the interaction with them. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with DISC and
Yes.
the assessments there, and I think one of the things that is very helpful is when you recognize your style and the situation that you're in,
Mhm.
and that by observing the other person and really paying attention to how they're reacting to you, when you can adjust your style, I think you can you can still be authentic even when you're adapting. So I think it's important to do that.
I love that point, Bill. Adaptability is crucial. I mean, I'm adaptive with my children. My children, same mother, same father, three completely different human beings. So the parenting style is different for each kid. One story I'll tell you: when at the first hospital I worked at, I was a head of support services in an operating room, and I was responsible for I had the equipment technicians, the people who actually clean the ORs in between surgical cases, and a few others. So I had about 50 people reporting to me, and it was a diverse group, all different ethnicities. And I recall being a new manager. I was 20, I think I was 23 years old, and I lived by the golden rule, right? Do as to others as you would like done to yourself, right? So what I always did, I found out what their birthdays were, and in their files, I had when their birthday was, and I would always send a birthday card to their home. And what was interesting is one gentleman came to me and he says, Mr. Drew, in my country, we don't celebrate birthdays. We celebrate our Saints' Day or our Names' Day. And it struck me. I said, okay, well, when was that? And so he tells me. So I ended up having all 50 some odd people come in, and I asked them, what do you celebrate? Some said birthday, some said names day, some said my wedding anniversary. And so I wrote all those down in their individual files. And what that taught, and then I would celebrate that for them. That taught me is the platinum rule. Do unto others as they would want done unto themselves. I did not compromise my integrity, didn't compromise my authenticity. I met their needs, and it made me feel good. And because when we do stuff like that, they feel good because I listened, right? And it releases all these positive hormones and chemicals, dopamine and serotonin and all that. So there is a scientific evidence that if you live by the platinum rule, you're going to be a lot happier. Both people would be. So thank you for mentioning that, Bill. Yeah, adaptability is crucial. I always say you can adapt, you don't have to adopt. Aaron.
Yeah, I just wanted to dig in a little bit more on what you said around emotional ego. That one really struck me. I think I struggle with that one quite a bit. Um, I work in finance and accounting, and so a lot of my role is quite black and white, right? It's there's not a lot of room for interpretation. And so I often find that um, it's a bit of a balancing act for me in terms of saying this is kind of the rules, and the rules must be followed, but also learning when to adapt that and when not to. So I'd love to get your opinion more on what emotional ego is and how I can kind of use an approach to
Absolutely.
handle it.
Absolutely. Take a sip of water and choke. Absolutely. I'll give you I'll give you a story from when I worked in the hospital. And I'll also tell you something that I use in my coaching practice called the pause button. I'll tell you what the pause button is in a second. So when I worked the last half of my career, I worked in patient advocacy, patient experience, patient relations. And the patient experience piece is the proactive piece. You want to work with patients throughout the care to alleviate anxiety and address situations before they come up. Patient relations are something comes up and then you do service recovery to rectify. So the patient experience piece, the proactive piece, I would customarily go with nurses on their nursing rounds. So when each nurse is going into patient rooms and doing what she or he needs to do, I would observe. And I recall one of the best nurses, she was told to me she was like the best nurse rounding. Rounding just means when you go and ask certain questions, and she was fantastic. And when I observed her, she was. And when she came out, she asked me for feedback. I said, unbelievable, exactly what everybody said. There's one thing that I want to bring to your attention that I'm not sure you noticed. And she said, what? I said, when you went into the second patient's room and the patient asked a question, you rolled your eyes and then you responded beautifully. You lost the patient when the eyes rolled. And she did not realize that she did that. And I said, do you have any, do you know why you may have rolled your eyes? Did you think it was a bad question? She goes, you know what? No, it was a good question. The patient previous was really a challenge, really difficult. And when I left, I was so flustered, and it was just, I think I just reacted because I just assumed it was the other patient. And it was very telling to me because in our the oldest part of the brain, we have the amygdala. That's our fight and flight, right? We see something, we're scared, we run. And so there's another part of our brain, which is the prefrontal cortex. That's the least developed of them all. And for men, it takes 7 to 9 years later for ours to develop. That's why, women are not a lot better than we are at a younger age making good decisions. What happens is that when you freeze, the freeze comes from that part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. And so I created what I called the pause button to help with the rational versus the emotional ego. And so what the distinction between the two is the emotional ego was when the nurse had a challenging patient and then went right to room number 2 to that patient without pausing and taking a deep breath and centering herself and getting into a rational ego. So I created the pause button so the nurse can come out of room 1, stand between and still in the hallway between the 2 rooms, reach into his pocket or her pocket and take out something that made them happy. Could be a rock from the beach, a picture of their kids, a picture of their dog, um, anything that makes them smile, and then take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. That breath, that seeing something happy, and that breath puts you from an emotional ego state into a rational ego state and centers you and then anchors the brain in that peaceful state. And then you go into the next encounter. So that's where I see the difference between the egos is the deep breath is what will get you into that rational ego state and move you from the emotional. I can definitely say that when I was going through my divorce, we went through mediation and I thought I could save the marriage and it was done. I didn't realize it. I was in an emotional ego state the whole time, and I made some not beneficial decisions in that emotional state. And the worst ego state you can be in when you make any decision is an emotional one. So it's that deep breath. And then I instilled a lot of gratitude in my life that will keep me in more of a rational ego state. I even check my ego every 15 minutes. It sounds crazy, but I will check because more often than not, when I'm working and if I'm focused on something, sometimes my subconscious brain switches projects on me and I didn't even realize it. And then if I'm checking 15 minutes and I realize, oh my gosh, I'm working on something else. How did that happen? Check my ego, and usually it's an emotional reason why I switched. Could be something popped up on my calendar. So it's a fine line, but it's that 5% conscious activity for you to really notice which ego state you're in. Did that help answer that, Alan?
Yeah. Yeah, it did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cameron.
Yeah, one of the questions I had was around, I see adaptability is influenced both ways, right? So you could have a room full of, executives that are truly desiring to be authenticate. And then let's just say the president or the senior leader drives the organization with more of a fear factor. How do you and I'm a technology person, so a lot of times what I say can be confusing to everybody, and you have to address like this is how it's going to impact your budget, this is why you want to stay on the most current version, there's a security risk aspect to it. But it was multiple experiences where you bring up something and then the head of the room is shuts it down immediately. And I would leave the meeting and people say, hey, you were right, or, I'm glad you said that. And we say, I was like, well, why didn't you speak up and say it? So this in this particular scenario, the group has adapted to the fear factor of the leader is going to, you're fired if you violated the HIPAA forms, right? Everyone wants to just save their job, they're not speaking up. So authentication of what is being needed for the organization is stifled because of one or two influences and the fear factor where no one else wants to speak up to that. So when you're looking at how do you help an organization grow or do the right things, and the most influential person in the room is part of that blocker, how do you get everybody else to speak up? Because a lot of times if 2, 3, 4 people would speak up, that person would change their mind.
Right.
But they were so scared to speak up, they weren't authentic.
Right. Very good question. I've been in that situation many a time and not always made the best decision. It starts from the top. And the if you're in that position, obviously, I would not say something at that time. I also would then have the awareness to think, am I in the right company? And I will go back to the process when you're looking for work, when you're looking for employment. What I find, and it's human nature, we don't usually look for a new job while we have a job. We're usually looking for a new job when we don't have a job anymore, and which is natural. The thing is, when you don't have a job anymore, you're more in desperation mode. A lot of people are. And so, and it's happened to me so many times, because the first step would be, oh, I have to get a job. I got to get an interview first, right? And so I will just look for any place in my industry, see what jobs are open, apply for them, and work to get that interview. Then I get the interview, and you look at the job description, and you answer their questions in the recruitment phase or the interviewing phase the way you think they want the answer to be, so you can get the job offer, right? And then you accept the job offer. And then you're already entrenched, even past that 30 days someone mentioned. And then you realize that the culture is contrary to your standards. And now you're faced with, do I compromise my standards or do I stick it out? A lot of people end up just complaining, right? And and I love Maya Angelou had a great quote. It's like, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Well, if you can't change your attitude, leave. I added that part in. Um, so when you're entrenched in that, and that you need to look in the mirror and say, am I in the right place? Because I personally would not be able to work in an organization where the decision maker is telling me something completely different from everybody else, because that's not going to change unless they remove that decision maker, and that's probably not going to happen, right? So I don't know if that helps you, Cameron. You're usually in too deep when it comes to that situation. You may have to rethink if you want to be at that organization.
Well,
But
I
is that
thought about it and I didn't want to be, so I left. So you've
yeah,
confirmed I made the right decision.
yeah. Sometimes we all need validation in that respect. Yes,
Yep.
absolutely. Anybody else want me to expand on anything? I mean, just you can throw me a topic and I'd be more than happy. That's around authenticity. And I didn't want to be didactic with what I talked to you guys about. I just wanted to be more of a give and take. So,
Um, Thank you. I just didn't want to dominate too much, but it was something I was thinking about. A friend who was really stressed out and burned out at a job he had, where he had two places. One place I think he rented, another place he owned. And we were at a men's prayer group that thing on a Friday, and so we all had sort of like the sort of prayer round where we took turns, and so I was the one praying for him, and he was like, I don't want him praying for me. He's gonna pray that I lose my job. And I was saying to him, yeah, well, Lord, if it's your will, take that job from him and give him something else for a third the effort with 3 times the remuneration. But in the meantime, he'd be like, I'm going to lose everything, because he was going from an emotional state, stressed out. So anyway.
no, good point, Russ. Absolutely. That emotional state sneaks up on us. And the thing is, more often than not, we've already created a habit over all these years being reactive and emotional state. And it really takes a lot of work to stop one bad habit and create a new one. But it's that awareness piece. And the fact you only have 5% of your conscious brain activity, you really need to be as aware as you possibly can. I'm scrolling through the meeting chat because I think there's some questions here.
There is a question.
Yeah.
Can you discuss soft skills?
Yes. Give me an example what you mean by soft skills. I have an idea. I just don't want to answer it different from what you expected. So soft skills, you mean?
I mean, I can't really, I guess I can Google it real quick. I've just been heard about soft skills, and I don't know if that's approach, being softer in approach, softer in communication.
All right. Well, soft skills, the way I'll interpret it now, can mean being able to assess your environment, learning social cues, I'd say one soft skill could be body language is a huge thing. That would be, I'd say, a soft skill. So let's say you're in a meeting
And now that we work
and
from home, I should add.
you work from home. You know what? You could be on a Zoom call, a networking call, and you can see people. The networking calls I don't like being on, that where I don't feel comfortable to be vulnerable, is when people don't have their pictures, when they're not live, when it's still. I know somebody here doing it. You have your reasons, and that's fine. My point is that you can look at people's eyes or their shoulders, and so when you say something, right, I always look for the head nod and the smile to know I'm on the right track, or I look for shrug the shoulders, they're leaning back, they're looking somewhere else to say, okay, I'm not on the right track. Now, that's not to say I'm going to change my answer just to have them shake their head. It would mean that, okay, well, it's okay if people disagree with me. And I may say, I'd love to hear some pushback. So I'd say a soft skill, huge, would be assessing body language in any relationship or communication. That would be a good one. Other soft skills, can't think off the top of my head, but is that helpful?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Udo, did I pronounce your name right, or am I messing your name up?
I've been called everything, including SOP.
No. What do you
so
like to be called?
Don't worry about spelling or how to say it. Odo is what my mother would say.
Odo.
Most folks say you don't work, which that's fine. Even hey you. But I have a comment leading to a question. The conventional wisdom when trying to make less than easy decisions is to use your quote gut instinct. And I personally feel, well, different people have a different concept of what gut instinct is. Some people think it's go with your emotions. Others would say emotions plus your rational side. Some would say emotional, rational, and spiritual. Given the need to be authentic, what is your, I guess, definition of gut instinct, and when would you run with it?
That's a very good question. All right. There's a chicken or the egg question here. People think, Drew, do thoughts come first or do feelings come first? And I believe thoughts come first. And let me tell you what, we have the average human being has 70,000 thoughts per day. 70,000 thoughts per day. So I'm saying be aware of your thoughts. Well, how the heck can I be aware of 70,000 thoughts? Well, what happens is many thoughts will trigger feelings or emotions. And my example, geez, growing up, if I made a decision or I thought of something that was contrary to my standards, and my standards are integrity, honesty, and truth, okay? I would get this, I call it a vibration in my chest, this weird feeling that didn't feel right. And for most of my life, I ignored it because I was the people pleaser, making a decision based on what other people wanted me to do. And I would ignore that. In the last 7 years, when I really dove deep and really learned about self-awareness and self-reflection and all that, and now I'm aware of my thoughts, it's because when you get a feeling, it's because the feeling is in reaction to something you were thinking. So now when I feel that feeling, I pause, the pause button, and I'm like, why am I feeling that? Nothing bad happened, but what was I just thinking? Oh, the conversation this morning, I get it. And then I'll be able to pause and get myself into that rational state and say, you know what? I'm not going to respond the authentic way. Maybe I may get mad and call that person and say, why did you say that? But I'm like, it's 5 hours after. Take a deep breath, forgive yourself for not having the tools at that time, and forgive that person for making you upset. And if this feeling continues, when you see them again in a rational state, say, I felt this when you said this. So yeah, sometimes you have to, sometimes people's authentic self is not good and you don't want them to be authentic, but you can usually pick that out when you are very self-aware and comfortable in your own skin, and then you'll be able to tell when people aren't being themselves. You can tell in their eyes. I'm telling you, there's a way, just at a practice, you can tell when people are not being authentic.
One of the takeaways, if I'm understanding right, is you're saying in a gut instinct scenario, you feel things, but you almost have to go back and say, what is the thought that's driving all of this? So
Right.
you're really moving more into a rational mode to have an effective gut instinct, for lack of a better phrase.
Absolutely, because
Okay.
sometimes your authentic gut instinct is going to lead you in a way that won't service you well or service the other person well. It's kind of like in road rage when someone cuts you off, right? You get that feeling that you want to go do something with your hand. And you pause and say, okay, I'm not going to take this personally. They didn't do it because Drew's driving the car. They did it because they're having a rough day. Cut them some slack. Forgive them for being stupid. You didn't get killed. Hit the brake, wave goodbye, take a deep breath, and thank them for getting out of your life. So yeah, I would say that's spot on what you just said. Tina.
Need to be fast on the unmute button. Okay. um, Drew, I love what I'm hearing. And, one of the things that you just said was, your standards of integrity, honesty, and truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that really resonates with me because, I think that's so important. And also to have have those type of standards and to be able to apply them to yourself, right, as your guiding light or your North Star. But I would say that for me, this has been it's been really problematic because I feel that in our current environment, political environment, world environment, data, technology, there's so very little of integrity, honesty, and truth. And it's so much of fake it till you make it, fake it, fake everything, AI. I don't know what's real, what's not real. And I'm finding it just, it really weighs down on me emotionally. And I'm having such a difficult time trying to find my next path in my career. And so I'm kind of, I'm in transition. I'm looking for the path of what can I do differently that's really going to light me up, use all of my best experiences and enjoy what I'm doing. But it's I was part of corporate finance for a long time and I got very much turned off from just toxic corporate culture. That's so based on profit and not, and I saw I'm looking at maybe nonprofit or board advisor roles, something like that, where I don't have to deal with the nastiness of the corporate culture. I'm kind of checked out. But now it's not just that. It's just complicated with all this. And so I'm very spiritual. I pray a lot about it. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate through this, but I often get so overwhelmed because it seems like no one cares about integrity, honesty, and truth anymore.
Tina, thank you for bringing that up. That's a lot of times the white elephant in the room. And I'm going to agree with you and I'll validate you. I've been there. I was there. And what I ended up doing, I haven't watched a news program in 7 years. All I've watched on television are sporting events, or the Food Channel or whatever. I took myself off of all the, even on like Facebook. I used to post whatever. Now I just use Facebook for my business, and reach out to friends just to say hi. So I got off of every single vehicle where I would encounter what you just said. Now, you have control, Tina, over who you allow into your life. And that could be in-person human beings on your block, and that could be the figures outside who are the negative people who don't act with integrity. You have that power. We all do. We all have that power to invite into our lives who we want and not invite or remove those we don't want. So remember I said we have 70,000 thoughts per day. Think about where those thoughts come from, and in your control, minimize those negative thoughts. If it's don't turn the television on. I'm off. People say, Drew, how did you not know that? I'm like, because I don't need to. Is it going to serve me well for me to know that ABC, whatever it is, right? Now, does it mean I'm ignorant? No, I just may not know what's going on. I can't control people telling me what's going on. I can say, I really don't want to hear about that right now. You know, and if they don't honor you, then maybe you move them out of your life. Oh yes, happy International Women's Day. I saw somebody put that in the chat. Absolutely. So Tina, I'd say you have control of who you decide, and you know what? Where your next move is will come to you as you eliminate the toxic people, toxic voices, toxic noise from your life. When people ask me why I'm doing what I'm doing, the mindful man movement is not just about men. It's about women too. Because if I can help men, I can help women. But it's making men more mindful. Because if men are more mindful and women are more mindful, we're more mindful together, and we're much more powerful and good for the world. So Tina, I'm saying just shut out all those. Go home tonight and do here are all the places where I'm hearing the negative noise. And then assess, do I have control over eliminating those voices? If the answer is yes, it's on you to make that decision. If the answer is no, then you may have to think creatively on what your response should be with those thoughts. Because thoughts are fleeting, impermanent, and they come out of nowhere. And we control which thoughts we ruminate and which ones we don't, right? And so the more aware you are of your thoughts because of your feelings, the more you can take some massive action and change your life for the better. I'll tell you, we have so much power inside of us. We don't need to let the outside world tell us what to do. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Drew, we have time for maybe one more quick question, and then we
Sure.
really need to be mindful of our 9 o'clock time frame.
Absolutely.
So if anybody has a quick question for Drew, that would be super.
Giuseppe.
Yes. Hi, Drew. That's the very, very interesting discussion, and I'd love to what I've been hearing. I think I was looking at the title of the today discussion, integrity and impact, and that's very well developed. I think just a thought. I think people nowadays they tend to wear different masks according to the place where they are and the people they are around. And this is something that I don't think is good because it goes against authenticity.
Right.
And also, I heard adaptability, and then integrity. And I love to hear briefly what you think about this thing about. I think it's a weakness for us to wear masks every time we are with different people. We should be more authentic. I totally agree. I think I'm saying something very, very simple. What do you think about this? Is it correct that people they change and this is a weakness?
You know what? Do I still wear masks? I don't know. I don't think so. I've worked on myself to change my words. I believe the first 3 words in every sentence are the most important 3 words. So I'll start every sentence with out of curiosity, for your privacy, for your security, for your safety, just because I'm curious. And then I ask the question. So I'll still be my authentic self. When you phrase the first 3 words like out of curiosity, it puts the person less on the defensive. And more often, I mean, if they know it's out of curiosity is so healthy. So I would say you don't have to wear the mask, just change the way you may say or do something, tweak it a little. Doesn't compromise your integrity or authenticity. Does that help, Giuseppe?
I agree. Yes.
Hey, before we go, I want to thank Cyrus because Cyrus is the one who recommended that I get asked to come here. So I thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you, Drew.
Absolutely.
And from all of us at PRG, we thank you, Cyrus, also for referring. You're great at referring such interesting speakers. We so appreciate you. And Drew, thank you. Thank you for your insightfulness for us. I think we all want to be authentic, and we've presented those challenges that come to us and what we have to do to maintain our authenticity. So appreciate it. We will share this presentation with you. That will go out along with all of your contact information. We have that, I'm sure, Drew, and that will go out, Tina, right? And as we wrap up and send the email out later today. So
thank you.
Thank you to all of you. We wish you all a great weekend. We look forward to seeing you all in a couple of weeks. And again, Drew, thank you so much for your time this morning. Very much appreciated.
My pleasure, Cindy.
Happy weekend, everybody.
Have a good weekend. Bye, everyone.
Happy weekend. Thank you.